ongoing thing. I don't have to introduce myself. You all know me, Sergio Lujan. And I've been watching since November of last year is when I noticed it. There was a lot of misinformation. And so and little did I know that the market, was just going to go where it's gone. I have a presentation from January of this year. I should do it I should replay like 5 minutes of it. And when you listen to it and you hear it, it was a very well-known economist. He talks about, at the time he talked about like, oh, rates are going to go up, maybe 1 point, and everything is going to be fine. It was amazing. It was amazing, amazing, amazing. And by the way, I know there's a couple people that were working. And if you're working and you're doing your business, just mute yourself. That's all. So I'm excited about just being able to share a couple of things. Number one, because I made notes, I want to share the truth. Number two, truth and facts sometimes could be manipulated. I want to share my experience. And then the number one thing I want to share is hope. H-O-P-E, hope. Because if you listen to the news and you watch the cable channels, it doesn't matter which one you watch. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter which party you support or you're against. Oh, pardon me. It doesn't matter. Everyone, all the news does is that they promote fear. They promote fear. That's what sells and makes the news cycle work. It's either fear, well, it's either fear or greed, one of the two. So that's what prompted me to do this and to do it consistently. I'll be doing this once a month in English, once a month in Spanish. And it's going to be all based off of these 4 kind of pillars that I mentioned: truth, fact, my experience, and hope. So I'm going to start off with my story. What qualifies me to say and talk about this? I entered into real estate I'm going to give you the first 10 years. The first 10 years, I became involved in real estate as a personal user. At age 22, my wife and I, Rosa, we bought our very first condo. That little condo was $85,000 in the city of Chula Vista. It was a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, maybe 960 square feet, and it was $85,000. At that time, just 2 years prior to that, my brother-in-law in 1989 bought a house that was maybe 1,500 square feet, 1,400 square feet, 3 bedrooms and 2 baths with a yard, 2-car garage. So 2 years later, imagine we're buying a little condo. They were very close to each other. They were like 2 blocks from each other. But that shows you how the prices had increased at that time. It's 1989, 1991. So we bought the most expensive condo you could buy at that time in that complex. So part of me was saying, okay, we did a good thing. But the other half of me, like my brother-in-law, two blocks away, bought a house for the same price, got a house, garage, 2 bathrooms, 3 bedrooms, and a yard, a nice yard too, front yard, backyard. But that's what we did. And so we started our journey of our marriage in that little condo. Now, we'll fast forward. The next property that we would buy would not be until 2003. It was November of 2003. That home we bought not in San Diego County, but we bought it in Riverside. We bought it in a city called Murrieta. We had been moving. We moved from Chula Vista to Claremont to San Marcos and so forth. And it brought us up. The climate here was better for my wife. I reside in Murrieta. I still love San Diego. There's nothing like the ocean breeze, but it brought us up here where it was more fitting for my wife's just overall health. So that home we bought for $389,000. All right. That home today, that's the one I wish I would have kept. That one home today is worth about $650 to $670. Single story, about 2,800 square feet. And I always remember whenever I'm in the area, I drive by because I remember the mistake I made. Here's the biggest mistake I ever made in real estate. I decided that home wasn't enough. I got greedy. They were building a big estate. It's still there today, Winfield. They were building homes that started at 4,000 square feet and went up to 5,000. 3,000, started at 3,000, went up to 5,000. They were horse or equestrian estates. Now that's not too bad, but I never rode any horses. So what was I doing buying a 2-acre estate when I wasn't even an equestrian? That should have been the first red light. The second red light is that 2 years later, that what happened was the economy or the housing crisis started because of the adjusting mortgages. And people are making today, they're comparing today a little bit. Is it going to be like 2008, 2009? I believe the answer is no, because the number one reason I believe that is we do not have fancy loans that are adjusting and that are converting into these big payment loans. People that are buying today, literally, out of if you took 100 people that I'm working with, and if you took a bigger survey, you're going to see that most people, 80 to 90%, are using fixed rate loans. And that is a safe bet compared to the exotic loans that we were using in 05, 6, 7, by maybe 8, maybe, and then they stop. If you ever want to see a good movie, watch The Big Short. I think it came out in 2015 or 16. Great movie about how the industry and how it imploded. I don't believe there'll ever be another time like that because of the way that the laws were. They were very lax on banks, and they could really move and create these fancy mortgages. So that was a different time, a different place. Now, where are we today? Because today, if there's a video, let's see, Marcela, can you help me? Did I share that video with you? Forgive me if I didn't. Did I put it in there?
The link, no.
No. Okay, hold on, guys. I'm actually going to put it in the chat here. I think I may have saved it here. Just give me a minute, because today was an interesting day. Today is the day. Oh yeah, here it is. So I'm just going to put it in the chat. You all can watch it as well on your own, but we are going to, and Marcela, you can pick it up there. I'm going to hit it, and you're going to pick it up, and maybe you can play it for us. Coincidentally, today, the 28th of July, 2022, is the first day officially that we fit the definition of a recession. That means 2 quarters back to back that we've had negative growth. That is the official definition of a recession. And today, I can't remember which bureau, the Bureau of I'd have to double check it. But today it was technically, we've had the second down. Tell me if you have that access to the link, Marcela.
We are ready to share now.
Okay, we're going to do just 2-3 minutes, not that long. Go ahead.
Okay.
I'll let you know if we can hear. Not yet. Look for the share the share, what is it called? Share media button. No, I've been there. I know exactly where it's at. That happened to me like 2 weeks ago.
So you can see it?
We can see it, but we cannot hear it.
Oh, that happens before.
Yeah. It's that little white button. A little drop on the left-hand side.
Yeah, I have it.
Yeah.
Okay. How about that? Yes?
Not yet, not yet. Actually, I'm co-sharing as well. Let me see what I can do on my side if you can't see it. We're only going to give it a minute. Here's my share button. Here's my share button. Oh, I don't want, I'm going to take it away from you. No, I don't want to take it away from you. I'll only take it away if you don't know how to get to it. It's under your share. It's the little right arrow. It opens up a window, and then on the left-hand side, you have to pick your screen, and you'll pick it, and then on the bottom left, it's going to be share media or share sound.
Okay. Share.
Thank you, friends.
There we go.
Okay.
We're good now.
GDP shrank by 0.9%. And, that is then the second consecutive quarter, which means that there is a recession.
Can you hear now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Ongoing debate. You got to get out Merriam-Webster's dictionary. Okay, so we're going to define recession for you. Here's the bottom line. The Biden economy is shrinking as the Fed unleashes rapid-fire rate hikes to try and stave off the highest inflation we've seen in more than 40 years. Let's get right to it. Maria Bartiromo joins us now. Maria, good morning to you. Go ahead and give us the news, because they projected 0.5% on the positive side. The number was a negative 0.9. We missed it by 1.5 points, right?
Yes, that's right. Good morning to you both. We are now in recession, and we can confirm that because it is 2 quarters straight of contraction. The economy shrank in the second quarter by 0.9% on top of shrinking in the first quarter by 1.6%. Now, so far, all of the commentary that I'm hearing is talking about a shrinking of the economy, but the good news for the economy is that job growth has stayed strong. And that was why some people were questioning, well, maybe it's different this time. It's hard to believe that job growth can be up to 300,000 in 1 month when, in fact, you are in a recession. What's different this time is that we did have an inventory buildup. In other words, a lot of companies were holding on to inventory because of those supply chain shocks. When they were able to get the supplies that they needed, they were built up and weren't able to sell them. So at the end of the quarter, companies were complaining that they had too much inventory and they needed to mark stuff down. And that led to some expectations, well, maybe inflation is peaking. I see no evidence that inflation is peaking right now. We are at 40-year highs. However, we did see oil prices come off of the highs of the year in the month of July. So maybe in July we get a better, more manageable consumer price index than the current 9.1% that we have right now. There is reason to believe inflation comes down in July, but it can go right back up again. The bottom line here is the economy is troubled. Don't forget, 3 million fewer people are working today than before the pandemic. We are producing less oil than before the pandemic, and we are no longer in growth mode. We are in a shrinking mode. The economy got smaller, not just in the first quarter, but the second quarter as well. Dana, you just mentioned the White House tried to manage this, get in front of the number, tell us a recession is not a recession. We all know what a recession is. This is what economists have counted on for as long as I've been covering this, and that's 30 years. 2 quarters of contraction is a recession. No matter how you feel about it or no matter what you want to call it, people are feeling pressure. They're paying 35% more for a dozen eggs than they were last year. They're paying 18% more for meat and fish than they were last year. And so those costs are creating what we call demand destruction. Housing is probably going to be the area that you want to focus on most, because you had mortgage rates now at 5.5%, and that has put a sharp dent in what we were looking at to be a very strong housing market. Bottom line, this is what the Fed wants. That's why the Fed is slamming on the brakes on this economy with 75 basis point hikes 2 times in a row. We will likely see rates continue to go higher and an economy continuing to slow.
So that's so helpful. And I wanted to ask you about that Fed rate hike yesterday. So the White House will come out today, no doubt, and the president will speak at 2:15 today. And one of the things that they will say is that recession announcements are backwards looking. That's looking backwards. And they will try to say that going forward, things look better. Do they have a case to make there when the Fed just did this yesterday and we won't have the effects of that for a few months?
No, I don't think so. If anything, we are looking at a GDP that sometimes people feel is backward looking, but there's every reason to believe that this gets worse because of the sting of inflation. I just spoke on Mornings with Maria to Nick Timmeros from the Wall Street Journal, Ken Rogoff, as well as Kevin Hassett. Ken Rogoff said he is expecting things to get worse in the second half of the year. We are watching all of these numbers because the Federal Reserve is watching to see how aggressive they're going to be. There's now a 22% probability that they raise rates again by 75 basis points in September. Well, that's lower than the chances that we were looking at before this number. We are still talking about rates going higher. And as you watch rates go higher, your borrowing costs go higher, and the rest of the world get impacted by that. There's now talk of government debt defaults across the world. Europe is probably going to go into recession sooner than the United States is, because Europe has a whole gas problem as well because of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So once we see Europe go into a recession, that reverberates as well.
Sure
Remember, this is not a...
Thank you. All right. There was no way that I was going to let this go by, because this is what you're going to see going forward. So what this does is, we all know it creates some level of apprehension, some level of, boy, am I doing the right thing? Should I be buying a house? Should I not be buying a house? You know, I'm just talking about my world, which is real estate focused, which is residential and small commercial up to 5 million, because I do help people buy businesses and help them buy real estate in that area. So when you hear that, it can be unnerving. Now, how do you balance that? Well, now we're going to get into a little bit of history, and then we're going to go through this process, and depending on how we do it. What are we doing here? Yeah, we're doing pretty good. Pretty good. We're not going to keep you that long. Marcela, can you start off our presentation now that thank you. Okay, so hang on. I'm not going to go not going to read every slide. That's not the point of this. It's just this is just designed to share some key points. Let's see. Oh, I can't control it. Marcela, go ahead, advance. Okay, thanks. So at the beginning of the year, the big takeaway on this page is at the end of last year, the beginning of this year, forecast expected rates to rise beginning of the year and recover into the fall. That's what the experts say. Okay, I put that in quotes because I'm not an expert in predicting. I'm not an economist. I just give you real world experience based on my experience now that it's been 20 years in the mortgage business and 10 years as a private individual. What happened? Rates did rise sharply through March and even through April. A little bit of not so much May, but they kind of hovered, but they went from like 3% to like 5.5%, like by the middle of the year. What happened to housing? Well, January, you were getting 10 offers, right? Because rates were still relatively low. They went up from 3 to 4 pretty quickly, and you were getting still 10 offers. February was very strong for sellers, March, very strong. Remember, real estate is based on your local real estate market. We cannot make assumptions across the whole country. That's not my intention here. You've got to look carefully at the demand in your own particular area or neighborhood where you own property or you're wanting to buy in. That's the micro, you have to have that micro vision to be able to analyze that very carefully. So that's consideration. So this year, I don't have my next month. I will, but I don't have them now. I will have some statistics on the forecast on the actual volume. So forgive me, I didn't get that. So just watch with me. The last point is strong demand and then tight supply. We know it's tight supply. People have still been holding. We're starting to see this month at the beginning of the month, we started to see a little bit more volume in property. Remember, every area is different, but compared to pre-COVID. So we're starting to see more people now put their homes up compared to what's considered to be normal pre-COVID. So that's important to recognize. These were things, this presentation is about 30 days old, just to give you an idea when it was put together. So it's still relatively fresh. The Fed will continue, just be aware of this. The Fed will continue to raise their rate. That rate in our world of mortgage-backed securities and we issue loans, today's hike was already, it wasn't a surprise to the traders. They knew this was coming. So they had already factored in today's rate hike as much as 2 to 3 weeks ago. So the market, there's very intelligent people running Wall Street. They're not surprised a lot of the time. Sometimes they are when a black swan appears, like we have a COVID or, we have the 2000, when the towers were destroyed, there's things that happen that do catch a Wall Street off guard. But right now, yes, the war, for example, in February, that was somewhat of that it's still going on and so forth. So that can have impact. But this year, expect the Fed to increase their rate that they charge between the banks. Sorry, I talk with my hands. So that, just be aware of that. It's going to happen. Here is a history, just a little history of the let's see, 70s, going back to the 70s. And then it's going to take us forward, okay? And then we'll show a little comparison. Now go back, go ahead. Let's go back to 70. Okay. This is a very important, ignored inflation, okay? This was something new, relatively speaking. Remember this word, transitory. We heard that, in November, December. Remember that word, because you're going to see it again. That's what it says, sound familiar. Transitory. What does that really mean? What that really means, even when I heard it, I was like, what does that mean, transitory? It's really what they're trying to say is temporary. That's what they're trying to say, okay? Year over year, inflation ballooned from 7%, which is where we are now, to 14. I don't know if anyone's old enough to remember the gas lines. I was a little boy, and I was in the car on a Tuesday because our license plate was an odd number or an even number. And that's how you fueled up your gas. And you had 20 cars in line. I remember that as a little boy. I might have been 7 or 8. What did he say? Then we get to the next decade. Here comes Paul Volcker. What happens? Hike federal rates, 11 to 20% in 2 years. In 2 years, look what happens. Look at when they increase the Fed rate, what they're trying to do is decrease the inflation. It went from 14% to below 5%. And then you can see at that time, look at what the mortgage rate was, 18%. And then it dropped 6 points to 12. When I bought my place, go to the next one. When I bought it, it was 1991. My interest rate was 8.5%. And it was an ARM. It was an ARM, an adjustable rate mortgage. It was an FHA loan. And it was fixed for 5 years. Then we come here, we have Alan Greenspan. This is when I kind of, the first one that I really like, oh, I know who that is. I didn't know who the other people were, the previous chairmans. And then you can see the inflation caused mortgages to rise again. There's my 8.5. Now we had some history. Greenspan, you can see there, took action. And he started increasing the Fed fund rate. And they're trying to manage it. They're trying to, this is how the economic system works here. Inflation responded and it dropped from 3.5 to 1%. We'll get more into, as we go along over the days and weeks, we'll get more deeper. I don't want to be here 2 hours. It's not fair to everybody. Now, here we are in today's world. Inflation, 1.75 before, meaning like pre-COVID, let's say call pre-COVID. Here we are now at 7. To us, it's like, what happened? Look at the word, transitory, temporary. So this word was used 40 years ago when we were hearing this. Higher inflation caused mortgage rates to rise. We can get really lost in the weeds, like why did they go down so low? It's because of all the economic stimulus that occurred. And actually, I have someone right now at 499, but they're paying points. You can actually pay a point or more, and you can get your rate if you have a 30-year fix, over 720 score with 10%, 20%. You can get it below 5 if you're willing to pay points. If you're not, then it's going to be somewhere in the 5s, 5, 5.25, somewhere there. Now, the Fed is currently tapering. See, this is new. Feds are currently tapering. What is this tapering? What, like what, a tape? No, they bought a lot, billions and billions and billions of dollars. Remember the 2008? The government stepped in and propped up the mortgage economy. And so we've been dealing with that for years now. They pumped so much money into it. And then remember the stimulus, right? We had the stimulus money, not to mention the stimulus money from COVID. All that money coming into the economy from 2009, 10, 11, 12. And then again with COVID, what it does when you have too much money in the system, it starts in essence devaluing your money when you have too much money in the system. So we gotta be aware of that. The Fed, we already talked about that. This is a nice little recap because it has a little picture. I thought it was awesome. And it starts showing us a pattern. That's what I want to show you. The older I get, now I can recognize patterns. When I went through my first recession, technically it was in 1989, but I was still 20 years old. I was 20 years old, I think, in 89. So I didn't recognize it. But we were at the very beginning of one that was in the late 80s to 1992. That was a recession of sorts. And then the one I really felt was the one in 2008, because I lost one house. We had paid $900,000 for this house. That's the one I should have never have bought. That was a big mistake. So when I advise people, I try to look at what they're doing and said, okay, does this make sense now and long term. And I'm not afraid to tell people this is a bad move. You shouldn't be doing this. There's powerful motivating factors that do guide you. We'll talk about it later. Recap. You can see the chairman here on the left. You can see inflation from left to right, 7, 14, mortgage rates, 12, 18%. The Fed rate fund, that's the one we always hear news about. Inflation response, mortgage rates, consequences. You can see the S&P.
Babe, I'm sorry. I'm literally just responding back to emails.
No problem, no
Like,
problem, no
Can you
problem.
acknowledge me?
I did. I
First?
went
Sorry,
to.
guys. We can hear
There
it.
you go.
Sorry. Okay, we're good. You can see Alan Greenspan, the next one. Look at that. Mortgage rates, Fed funds rate. Look across slowly. Look at where the rates are. Fed, look to the right. S&P, recession. Bottom. 1.75 to 7%. Oh, stay there. Thank you. Mortgage rates. Look how low they were. 2.5 to 3.375. Look what the Fed fund rate was. It was at 0 in 22. Now, the question is, how long does the Fed have to keep raising the Fed fund rate? How long, how many times more in order to get inflation to turn? That's nobody knows. Nobody knows that. We won't know until after, probably 6 months late after is we'll know when it changes. And I'll give you some really good steps in my little end so that you can navigate that. So mortgage rates, in theory, eventually, when we have that drop, when Fed rates keep go up, inflation starts going down, eventually rates will come down. I don't know where, but they'll come down. Will they come back to 3%? Maybe, maybe not, but they will come down. They will. Okay, wild cards, COVID. We know COVID is going to be here forever. We know that. We have to deal with it. Different variants, take care of ourselves, etc. Stimulus. That's a dangerous word. We don't want to see any more stimulus. We don't need any more stimulus. I don't care if it was a Republican in running it now, or doesn't matter. We don't need any more stimulus because it's bad for the economy. When we keep getting more stimulus, it devalues our money and it creates inflation. And you could see there, pushes stocks up, causes mortgage rates to rise further, makes Fed's job of corralling inflation even more difficult. So we don't want any more stimulus. We should not want any more stimulus. Runoff of Fed's balance sheet, that's more technical. I didn't want to get all fancy, but we did have to put it. That's related to the mortgage-backed buying, buying and selling, what they call tapering. That's just more advanced. But watch the movie, The Big Short, great movie. I can get lost in that. And this meeting is not for that. It's to give you an overall picture. Now, what do you do with the stock market? Okay, here's what's going on. The stock market, as we go into what they call a bear market, that means it's not growing, it's more flat. There's still a place to buy good quality stocks in the market. And a little bit later, I'll talk more about it. There is still a place. What's happening is you can buy stocks in companies that you believe in, that you use daily. Don't get exotic and buy in other unknown type companies that are very deep, that you don't understand what they do. Buy the ones, for example, perfect example. If you're a Costco member, you probably should own some Costco stock. If you subscribe to Netflix, for example, I don't, but if you did, I did once before, then you probably should own a little bit of Netflix, because you're supporting that. That's an example. There's a place for the stock market and stock portfolio long term, just like there's a place for real estate long term. Go ahead, Lisa. Now, where do I think rates will be? The Fed is going to continue to raise their Fed fund rate. The 30-year Fannie and Freddie Mac rate probably before the end of the year. But watch this. This is the interesting part. This year we have, I believe we call them midterms. 2022 we have midterms, and 2024 we have a presidential election. If you look, this will be real interesting. Marcelo, do me a favor, make a note to get historical data on years that we have midterms and years that we have presidential elections. Okay? Because I don't haven't memorized them, but I know when I looked at it, when I got in the business 2001. I came into the business and I was learning the business, and I got licensed in 2002. At that time, my mentor, she was a nurse. She told me, because we were talking about elections, usually in election years, they try to balance things out because the party, doesn't matter which party, the party in power wants to look good. And so historically, the years of not inflation, but forgive me, I lost my train of thought, of elections, rates don't tend to go up. So I would be looking in probably the fourth quarter that we should have really no movement. So the movement that's going to occur this month, for example, July, I got to look at the calendar, the Fed calendar. We got to look at the Fed calendar. I think they have a couple more meetings, maybe three or four before the end of the year. There shouldn't be any movement in the fourth quarter because that's too close to November. So rates will probably go up this year, the Fed rate, but every time that it goes up, the market, the MBS, the Wall Street, they already know because they listen to Volcker. They said Powell. They listen to Powell. They know what he's going to do because he's talking about it 2 months in advance. The market has already assumed that, and they price it into their. They don't wait until he says it. They're already doing it before. So if I were to guess, by the end of the year, the average 30-year rate should be around 6%. Guess what? That's exactly where it was when I got into business in 2001. It was right around 6%. You could get it at 5.875, 6%, 6.25, right about there. Now, is that bad? No, it's normal. It's actually normal because the market, that's the nature of the market. Now, how will that affect real estate? Thank you, Marcela. Housing will remain strong this year. It is strong. People are buying homes. Not as many people are refinancing because you've got to have a very convincing reason to refinance that makes sense in your case. Who would that be? Here's an example. I have a young man, he's about 30 years old. The mother-in-law is gifting them the house. They're getting a gift of equity. The mom doesn't want to be on the loan, so they have to assume the loan is not assumable, so we have to refinance them. And we're going to take out $80,000 or $90,000, and we're going to improve the house, and their rate is going to be somewhere around 5 to 5.5. It's an FHA loan, so it's a little different. There's mortgage insurance built in there. So it's somewhere around 5 to 5.25, depending where it is. That is a good reason to refinance. That's a good reason. So there's less refinancing going on right now. The demand may be slower, softer due to rise in interest rates. We know that. Supply will increase, but remain tight. Tight labor. Okay, supply chains. We know we're having a little bit of that, maybe not so much. Semiconductor shortages. They just announced last week a big stimulus package for the semiconductor industry. Rents, oh, Rents. Oh, this is the one that really hurts. Rents, I've seen rents go up 10, 20, 25%. People that were paying $2,000, now they're paying $3,000 or $3,200.
Mhm.
And they were stuck. They couldn't leave anywhere because if they left, they had to stand in line behind 10 to 30 people because the economy changed. Now we had people coming from more expensive areas like the Bay Area, for example, San Jose, even LA. People were starting to move. They were migrating. We're moving around because now you could work from home. The Social Security Administration, I think, is still working from home. The EDD, California, the EDD, I think they're still working from home. And they may never even go back. We don't know. We'll see how it goes. But these are big labor. Big labor is that way. So it's incredible. So rents, depending on which side of it you are, they're going to continue to go up. There's no sign of rents slowing down. So that is pushing people, making them uncomfortable. And they're like, I got to buy something. Because that's how you do rent control. If you're renting on this call, that's how you stop it. You get your piece. Stop paying someone else's mortgage and start paying your own. That's my little soapbox for that. Mid to high single, thank you. Now this is a little technical chart. I'm not into charts a lot. I like to interpret it, but they're giving you here 10-year. We can spend hours on that, on what we're looking at. Now, this is my favorite part. What do you do in a recession? How do you react to it? Look at number one, simplify your life. What does that really mean? We saw this, let me translate this. We saw this during COVID. Focus on people, not things. Simplify your life. You don't have to go out and spend $300, on a concert and a movie and spend. You may want to hold back and pull back the reins a little. Watch your money. What does that mean? Like pay attention to how much money you actually have. Most of us don't. I've been guilty of that. I only look at it once a month. That's not enough. I need to look at it on a weekly basis. I was listening to number 3, Warren Buffett. I listened to Warren Buffett earlier this year. Ooh, it's getting dark here. Even the lights went off. How about that? And Warren Buffett said, they asked him, what should you do in a recession? He said, start a business. This is a way the average person, can get ahead. That's earning a W-2 income. They want to increase their income and they're concerned because things are getting more expensive. Start a business. And in today's world, you can do so much. You can do an Airbnb in your house, rent a room out. You can rent your car out on Turo. I mean, you can do almost virtually anything that can increase your income. You can sell, I've seen over the years, women that sell cosmetics, you can sell, there's so many financial services, there's so much. Maybe there's a hobby that you've always thought about, you want to do and create something. I met with someone a week ago. They started a business that they've been wanting to start for, I think she said, I can't remember exactly, it was a couple of years. I think they were thinking about starting this business. It was an auto detailing business. And they finally started in January, and they have been growing like crazy. They keep referrals, and they wish they would have done it sooner. So this is the best time, believe it or not, to start a small business. Number 4, buy assets, not liabilities. Wow. Okay, that's a tricky one because people can argue real estate, is it an asset, is it a liability? It's half asset and half liability because you're paying on it. Paying down your debts. I encourage you to pay down your debts during this period of time. And believe it or not, create a will. Create a living trust. These are things that we don't pay attention to when things are going well. We should take a moment and reflect because life is not forever. I don't know how many of you gotten COVID, but I lost, I think, three people in my life in the last, it wasn't COVID, all COVID. Three people close to me that died in the last year and a half. One of them was age, another one was COVID, and the other one was just very sick. So this is a good time to reflect and actually take a step back. If you have children, you're married, or have a house or real estate, you should have a living trust is ideal. We can talk more about that. I've had 2 clients in 20 years that died, and both their families were not ruined, but they went through a lot of pain because they didn't have the proper coverage. Number 8 is related to that. If you're married or have children, own a home, you should have some level of income protection. That means you should have some kind of insurance. It doesn't have to be crazy, but you should have some level of coverage for yourself or your business, because, you know, if people are depending on your business. This is a very powerful case study. Meet the Awesome family. I haven't gotten their permission yet, so I had to make up a name. So here's Mr. and Mrs. Awesome. When I met them, they were paying $2,400 in rent. Do the math that if you multiply that by 12, that is quite a bit of money, maybe around 28,000 or so. Then in 2008, they actually, through the prompting of their friend, their realtor, they came to me. They were only qualified for $277,000 when I met them. That's because the previous loan officer didn't do a very good job discovering that they had some income. I found some more income, and they bought for $379,000, 3-bedroom, 3-bath, single family residence, 1,800 square feet. Look at the rate in 2018. Look at it very carefully. 5.75. Sound familiar? That's a little bit higher than what it is right now. Just to give you a point of reference, if you're on here and you're like freaking out because rates are not 2% anymore, 2.5%, look at that rate, 5.75 30-year fixed. They went from $2,400 a month to $2,861. So their payment almost went up $500, almost. We refinanced them in July of 2019. We dropped their payment almost to $2,400. And in April of this year, they sold their home for $605 and bought a bigger house, 5-bedroom, 4-bath, for $680. And look at the equity, $227,000, and they put 0 down. The state of California gave them $30,000 for the down payment and for their closing costs back in 2018. And they did that. So was that a smart move or not? You bet it was. That's the power of real estate. And their friends thought they were crazy because they went from $2,400 a month in rent. They went up to almost $2,900, almost. But they did it anyway because they were empowered. Thank you, Marcelo. Keep going. Planning. This is along the lines of planning. That's true for a first-time home buyer, for an investor. I have a gentleman right now. He's looking at buying manufactured homes. He's looking at buying land. He wants to start buying land and buying manufactured homes and building homes and creating affordable housing right now. And so I'm going through that with him right now. It doesn't matter if you're first-time home buyer, if you're an investor, we always have to do planning. So that's where you talk to a lender, keep your credit up, watch it, monitor it. Don't make big purchases. Don't go out and buy fancy cars. Don't go out and raise your credit balances, and try to stay in the same industry. Don't be bouncing around. That really makes it hard. Thank you, Marcelo. This is the bottom line. The bottom line is, does real estate make sense for you now or not? It's very simple. Look at the industry you're in. Are you going to live in the same area? Let's just take San Diego. I can see San Diego from here because the border is not that far. So Riverside, San Diego, are you going to live in the same place for at least 10 years? Are you going to be there Anything less than 2 years or less, you probably shouldn't buy there. If you're going to be there in that area longer, then real estate does make sense to buy. If you have a stable job, if you're planning on living in the area. Down payment is not an issue. We have millions of dollars. We've got like 7 different programs that we can use. That's the least of your worries. I just gave you an example of a family that bought with 0 down. And 4 years later, they had equity of $225,000. I can keep going back to 2002 when I saw that happen, when rates were higher. I'm here not to sell you on anything. I'm here, what was it? To give you hope, right? To tell you the truth, to share the facts, and to share my experience. That's what I wanted to do today. Marcela, anything else? Oh, there's my information. You got my information. A lot of you already know me, so it doesn't apply because you already know who I am. For those of you that don't, that's my information. Do we have anything else, Marcela?
No, that's it.
Okay, we're done. Cool. This is a great time if you have questions. And sorry, I went dark here. I'll turn the light on. If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. I would love to hear your voice because I've been talking now and I need to take a sip of my tea. But Marcela will monitor the chat box.
I got a question for you, Sergio.
Yes, sir.
Do you know, because you were saying how long is it going to take, or how much is the Fed going to have to raise rates to see, raise the fund rate to actually see mortgage rates go down again? Do we have a way to research what the prior Fed chairs did to see how long it took for them to do that?
Yes, we do. Marcela's
Yes,
going
sir.
to be our researcher. We'll be back in like 2 weeks, about the middle of the month or so.
Yeah,
Do
because
me a
I mean, it's
favor.
not going to be exact, but history.
No, it's going to
repeats
be
itself.
exact. See, we're looking at 40 years of history. We're not just looking at, just like the last recession. We're going back to modern day real estate. Modern day is from 1970 through today. That's it. That's in our lifetime. I'm not going back into the 60s and the 50s. So that is, oh, thank you for the question. Yes, this is recorded and it can be and it will be shared here. Absolutely, it will. So yeah, Rocky, we will make sure that we do that. Oh, Rosa, are you available?